Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Reveal Report. I'm your host, George Iceman, on this Monday. And man, what an episode we got. So fasten your seatbelts, get your favorite snack, whether it's popcorn, candy, maybe a cookie, chips. I don't know what it could be. Your favorite drink, water, juice, coffee, tea, whatever that is. And sit back, relax. I think it's going to be a great show, guys, as we get into UFO sightings. What's going on? It's in the news everywhere. There's hearings in Congress and so forth. People are doing these hearings. I thought we'd touch on it and shine a little light, pull away the veil, and maybe discuss a bunch of things about UFO sightings. Maybe some of you in the chat have experienced the phenomenon, something that you can't describe, that you have no idea for, and maybe get into a little bit of the biblical side of things on this topic, UFO sightings. It's great to have a little back and forth. So we appreciate you guys all being here. If you're new, like, subscribe. All right, guys, participate in the chat. We have great people in the chat, and it means a lot. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Telegram, and of course on Patreon, where we do special shows for those that are members, including one coming up this Thursday. We do the World News Report. I'm going to be running through some of the big things in the news, including P. Diddy and a few other things. Lots going on that you have no idea, that is not being talked about in the mainstream media. So we're going to touch on that exclusively on Patreon. Join. And of course, here on YouTube, listen, a big shout out going out to Lisa M. Lisa, who is a great supporter on PayPal this week, said, we got to keep the show, George. We need it on air on YouTube. So please spread the word, get it out there for everybody. So she's, throwing something our way to try and keep this show up every single Monday on YouTube. So thank you to Lisa M. And any one of you that can help in any way, shape, or form to keep the show on YouTube every Monday, and go to paypal.me/George Iceman. Everything helps and goes a long way. All right, guys, we got that out of the way. Let's get into it. UFO sightings. Let me bring on my co-host here, who is an author, has many books available on Amazon, and of course also sets up some special events where she does these teachings and some seminars on certain things. And she's going to, give her opinion and her thoughts, and maybe some stuff that she's aware of in regards to the UFO phenomenon, on both sides, publicly, maybe biblically. What are her thoughts on that? We're going to bring her on. Please welcome Jessie Czebotar. Hey, Jess, how are you?
Hey, George. Good to be here.
Are you ready for UFO sightings today?
I am. It's one of the most interesting topics out there, I think.
Yeah.
Whether aliens and UFOs are real or not.
Well, let's begin with a news report on the Pentagon and trying to get information, and we'll try to break this down slowly. Turn up your volumes, crank it up. We'll share this clip. Here it is.
Turning to the new report now from the Pentagon about unidentified flying objects. There were hundreds of new reported sightings over the last year, and some the government still can't explain. Chief Global Affairs Correspondent Martha Raddatz joins us with the details. It's quite the talker. Martha, good morning.
Good morning, Whit. It does. It all sounds straight out of a science fiction movie, but these unidentified airborne objects are taken very seriously by the Pentagon and the intelligence community. And this morning, their new report revealing that these sightings are on the rise.
Navy pilots have seen them.
Oh my gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west.
More than 1,600 unidentified flying objects have been reviewed by the government's Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARROW, over the years. 98% of them eventually found to be debris, drones, or even large birds. But new numbers this morning, from May of 2023 to June of 2024, show 757 new sightings, with 21 of them that cannot be explained. And all 21 mysterious objects were seen near national security sites, witnessed by multiple people, or captured on sensors or videos. While the Pentagon does not know what they were, they are quick to steer the public away from little green men.
To date, the department has discovered no verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial beings, activity, or technology.
But at a hearing this week, the former head of the Pentagon program investigating these objects says nothing should be ruled out.
Has the government conducted secret UAP crash retrieval programs, yes or no?
Yes.
Were they designed to identify and reverse engineer alien craft, yes or no?
Yes. Let me be clear. Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations.
While Pentagon officials do stress that they have no evidence of any of this being alien technology, they have not ruled that out and are continuing to investigate every unexplained sighting.
She said that the government says they have, no confirmed, alien things. Well, what are your thoughts on with the propaganda? To me, this is all a propaganda piece anyway.
I mean, the first thing is, they use words like, we can't confirm, we can't deny. That's the next part of that phrase is we can't confirm, we can't deny. So, they're just basically saying we can't share the secrets. We all know that they have secrets. We all know that there's interesting phenomena going on, and what's really behind that phenomena. I think that's what we're going to break loose tonight. I think that there's definitely clearly some explanations, George, as we get into this. And
yeah, I find it fascinating because, again, the phenomenon seems to be really revving up recently. Now, in that opening segment, they said that there's more now than there was before, and they gave a number, and they talked about how there's so many sightings happening right now. What's
all of a sudden out of nowhere, all just right around the election time?
Well, give me your theory. What's your theory? What's your conspiracy? Why is there all of a sudden all kinds of sightings from UFOs?
Well, for me, I think it's stuff that's going on behind the scenes. I know we'll get into it further, but you've got groups like, Space Force. There's been conspiracy theories. We'll say, I don't believe that they're conspiracies, but anyway, there's been theories that, has there been individuals in our government or connected to our U.S. military that are involved in criminal activity, including, we'll say, the movement of children.
Whoa. Hold on a sec now, Jess. How did we go from UFO sightings to the missing of children? What's going on?
I think it's all interconnected, George, because as you get into the theories, you got to bring in, different things about, this foreign government and foreign military called the Brotherhood and their sovereign military. And in that, there's intertwining connections to, their sovereign military training children up into brotherhood positions. Does that training include, training at U.S. military bases? Is, that training including, children that maybe don't engage with the spirit world so easily? Do they have to find a way to connect those children to spiritual beings, which they call aliens, and does the thought of a tangible being from out of this world, allow them to make that spiritual attachment with some of those children and individuals? Then you get into biblical things with that, but we'll get into that in a minute. So in that, is there a tangible explanation to all of this? I think there is, and I think it connects directly to the Brotherhood and their sovereign military and their training and their programs and their experiments within our U.S. military.
It's very interesting stuff here, what you're saying, and all these plots and conspiracies. There are a lot of theories out there on what's happening and all these sightings, why it's happening, why there's so many. There's a lot going on here. And I don't think we'll ever know the actual truth. But, let's touch on this specific thing. Sonia said it. A few people said it. And in my opinion, I disagree with this comment. You might not, but there's arguments here. So Sonia here says, I think aliens are fallen angels. Well, that's interesting. That means there would be thousands. But that's not what I'm taught. I wasn't taught that many. Unless my education is incorrect, Jesse, wasn't there 200?
I don't know. I mean, George, myriads upon myriads, and you've got, a portion of those myriads being fallen angels. It's plausible. You got to put it out there. I think it's plausible. So it gets interesting as we look further into the alien agenda. You know, are they actually beings from out of this world? Are they even before God? Were they a special council that God created that then he used to, form the worlds, the governments? Are they watchers? Do they oversee those things? Are they actual little gray beings, from outer space? But you even get into the term terrestrial. Did you know that that's a term used in the military in different projects and experiments? And it actually connotates a state of being. Like if you're in your physical form, you're not called a terrestrial. But if you're in your spiritual form, like, remote viewers who astral project, they would be considered in a terrestrial form. Extraterrestrial means that both your spiritual and your physical body are in that spiritual state that, which then that brings in the whole idea, are there such things as ghost warriors? People who can change their state of matter and walk through walls or go through floors. So when we hear that there's an extraterrestrial, is it really an alien? Or is it a person who, through magic or whatever means, is able to change the state of their physical matter?
Well,
Interesting.
let me touch on some of those points that you made. Number one, I don't believe that if there are aliens, they're all fallen angels. That's just not possible. From the mathematics.
What would you say are some of the possibilities or what they are?
Well, it could be creator. It could be it could be a species that God created to maybe watch over us, to keep the peace, to protect us from others. Maybe watchers. That's another option. I don't think, and we don't all know that these alien beings per se are all dark and evil, because there's no proof of communication yet with them. So we don't know that. So if they're fallen angels, they would be dark. They would be vengeful. They would want to destroy us for God taking us over them. So
I think that's most of the documentation on people who've had experiences with aliens. It's all, mostly evil, with probing and different experiments and projects that they go through. I don't think I've heard a single good story about an alien encounter.
But then again, all your stories that you're hearing how are they true when there's never real actual proof? Everything is somewhat he heard it, she heard it, they heard it. We're at a time in life where, we have cell phones. We have security cameras, Jesse. I'm not buying this narrative.
What about Aleister Crowley's demonic spirit that looks like an alien?
This is not.
Do you place that in the same category or separate?
It's not ET, extraterrestrial, like you're talking about. From my studies, it's very important everybody watching this program listens very carefully. In my studies, and I'm yet to discover somebody to come to me and prove me wrong, aliens are more in the spirit. They're spiritual beings that could possibly take over the body. That's a possibility. Somehow they harvest themselves in a human body. Maybe we portray these beings visually. We could write them down in a dream, mystically, in the spirit, but physically, how is it that with today's technology, Miss Jessie, in today's technology, with security cameras everywhere, all over the planet, with everything they got, with damn cell phones, not a single three-dimensional ET has ever been captured on film?
I like that definition, defining that aliens are spiritual beings, and they may not fall under the class of a fallen angel or a demonic spirit.
Correct.
Or the paranormal.
Correct. So we have to look at it that way. We have to look at it that way, where that we, in the paranormal world, I spent 13 years researching, studying a lot of this stuff. It's not concrete in what we know really is happening in this realm. There's so many beings, creatures, everything. Now, is there a huge percentage of them that are negative and bad? Yes. But here's a question for you, Jess, and everybody watching. Sometimes, you know, you're in a street and something pulls you. You don't know what pulled you. Something pulled you. You don't know what it was. And you almost got hit by a car. But if that one thing didn't jerk you back and you can't put your hand on it, you didn't see it. You thought you saw it. Something mystical, something spiritual pulled you away. Somebody gave you a warning. Someone told you not to turn the car that way because there was something bad. Something prevented you from going somewhere. There are certain things that happen in the supernatural we can't explain. But those forces are not nefarious. They're not evil to harm you. In fact, a lot of them, and I'm sure there's a bunch of people here, are going to say sometimes these forces help you. So would that be angels? Or, again, alien beings of some sort that God created to watch over us? Is that a possibility?
I think as you defined it, we got to put it on the table as a possibility. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
On that, so we've said that. We've agreed that it could be in a spirit or something. A lot of people have, you know, they say firsthand accounts and testimony, and they give their testimony of what they perceived to have witnessed. I'm going to play a video of a person in Canada. It's the most documented case of him witnessing and possibly having an encounter with a extraterrestrial or UFO. I'm going to play it, and then I would like to get your feedback, and let's dissect it. So turn up your volumes, guys. I'm going to play this right now. This is explaining one of the most popular cases that happened in Canada. Here it is.
Falcon Lake, Canada, May 20th, 1967. 51-year-old Stefan Mahalik is prospecting for silver and quartz in a remote corner of Manitoba when he suddenly witnesses an event so remarkable that it is considered the best documented UFO case in Canadian history. It is called the Falcon Lake Incident.
My dad going off to Falcon Lake that weekend, he was off on another one of his rock hunts. And the part where he was prospecting at Falcon Lake, there are several gold mines there. So eventually he makes his way to a relatively high piece of ground, and that's when he looks up. And coming out of the southwest sky are two objects, and they're a sort of an orangey reddish color. They're giving off a lot of light. He's wearing goggles. They have welder's glass that flips down. The only reason he had them is so that when he was chipping rock, he wouldn't hurt his eyes. Now, this will come in handy. The first UFO lands about 140 feet away from Dad. And it's making all kinds of clanking and spitting and hissing sounds. So when Dad turns his attention to the one that landed, the next time he looks up, the other one's on his way up and gone.
At first, Mahalik thinks the UFO might be an experimental NASA or Soviet spacecraft. But the longer he observes it, the stranger it becomes.
Dad's looking at this craft, and he doesn't know what to make of it. It's a mirror metal craft. There are no seams. There's no rivets. There are no screws. There's a sort of a dome on the top, and it's got slits in it. So he's wearing gauntlets, long gloves, and he reaches out to touch the craft, and the fingertips all melt. Now, suddenly, out comes this blast of something, lights his shirt on fire, and sends him back. He falls to the ground. He's busily trying to put out this fire that's on his chest. He's wearing a strappy cotton undershirt. So he pulls that off and throws it to the ground. Meanwhile, this craft is continuing to rise and leave. And then, gone. Just right back in the direction it came.
According to official documents, in the immediate aftermath of his distressing encounter with the unidentified craft, Mahalik becomes disoriented, severely burned, and suddenly very ill.
He hasn't taken more than 2 steps, and he's on his knees and he's throwing up. He's been burned, but that's just, regular burns, thermal burns. But this is doing something to him. Then he's sweating. Then his head starts to go. And now he's spinning. He realizes if he doesn't get out of here, he's going to die here.
By sheer force of will, Mahalik somehow managed to stagger back to town and eventually makes his way back to a hospital, where he is immediately put under observation. Doctors discovered that Mahalik's white blood cell count had dropped to very low levels. He was feverish and confused. No one was sure what to make of his unusual symptoms. But what truly confused doctors on call were the strange burn marks found on Mahalik's chest and abdomen.
Yeah, I think definitely well documented and things that you aren't usually going to see.
Yeah.
You know, what's fascinating in that case is that, you know, there's documentation of what he saw, of vehicles that, you know, don't exist, aircraft that doesn't exist in that time, supposedly. You know, even when it reports the, you know, whatever it was that gave him the burns, you've got these weird shapes, you've got, you know, imagery that he's describing that's not typical stuff. It's not even something that somebody's just going to make up in that time frame, right? So that's part of the mystery of this, is that he's describing things that don't even exist in that time frame.
Well, someone here, Jonathan Freeman, says that he worked for the military at Luke during the launch of a top secret craft. And he's going to be joining us in the after show because I want to hear this story. So, Jonathan, please join us in the after show. I want to hear this. This is amazing stuff. And again, not to rally back, he touched it. Something burned. He got sick. Obviously, it has to do, I don't know if it was a poisoning or a frequency, because we hear about frequency a lot. Mm-hmm. High levels of frequency, low frequency, frequencies everywhere. Frequencies are important. It's a form of energy, frequency. And everyone...
And it does exist in light form, so it could be used as, like, you know, to cause burns or whatever, you know?
Yeah, 100%. So I'm curious to this. Now, I got to put this out there. Was this actually a UFO, alien, or was it a military experiment, new technology, a new weapon that they were working on for their enemies? Because if they were attacked with spaceships, you'd never know what country it came from or where it was about. You would blame it on outer space. Right. There's a segue to this later on in the show, but that's why I'm bringing it up now. Is it possible this could have been a military project?
You know, I tend to lean that direction. I think that's exactly what it was.
Okay. On that note, we talk about military. This week there was some hearings on that. We're going to touch on that. I'm going to touch on Stephen Greer. Amazing, Dr. Stephen. This guy's great when it comes to alien stuff. We're going to go into some other things, but I want to share you a picture and then have you talk about this. This is the United States Space Force. We created a Space Force. Now, to me, I don't trust anything the government does. But just between me and you, Jess, I don't trust what the government is doing. And this is just another way to harvest money and do black ops and say, yeah, the aliens, or there's a bigger plan. Again, I'm just not used to trusting anyone or anything. So give me your feedback. What are your thoughts on Space Force? And what is the meaning of that logo?
Yeah, when you break down the symbology of that logo, and if you can keep the picture up for a minute, it's a lot. You know, I've broken down the sigil for the Department of the Space Force, you know, according to the things in the Brotherhood. And what you get is it tells you the different let's start with one of the things that it tells you is the principalities and authorities that that department is under, which would include Abaddon, also authorities like Leviathan, Ashtaroth, and then you would have Baphomet and Azazel. So that's some of the symbology that we see there. And then, you know, you've got this symbol of the arrow, which within the system, they'll put everything under what they call a cherubic sign. So the arrow is seen as part of the cherubic sign of the man, which would mean a southern jurisdiction. That southern jurisdiction can be seen on land or below land or above land. But it's specific that it's, to the southern jurisdiction within the system. Then you have, what looks like in the center, the arrow, the horns kind of with the star in the middle, representing that it's under the authority of, principalities, brotherhood groups that are going to be under, I guess what we would say, in the system is as beings that are known as horned beings. So, you see that imagery of the two horns with the star, in the middle of the head, particularly with Baphomet. You also see that with Ashtaroth. In some of the imagery, like the Nazis would use that imagery of the female goddess Isis with the two wings on, representing the cherubim wings or the seraphim wings on the head with the star in the middle.
Yeah, I see that.
So you get a lot of the different occultic imagery with it. Now, here's one more thing that people aren't aware of is that on December 22nd, before he left office, I think it was 2022, we'll just say Pence, he, as they were kind of introducing Space Force, Pence made a very defined statement where he said, they shall be called guardians. Now that term is very specific and comes from Manly P. Hall's book, Initiates of the Flame, where it says, those in the order of Melchizedek, which is one of the brotherhood orders, shall be known as guardians. And, so you get some of that imagery, and then, does that connect to the universal or the galactic military under the sovereign military order? I think it does, but it gets very interesting. It's like this has to be beyond just aliens. There's other things at play here that we need to be aware of.
Well, I think militarily, I think they'll use every aspect and facet available to them, whether it be alien, supernatural, demonic, spirits, money, power, anything they could put under an umbrella, they're going to do. I truly believe, again, a lot of this is military. It is special projects that are quiet. Yeah. Every country is looking at being better than the other. That's a fact,
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm in complete agreement on that.
Yeah, and I think they're all looking at harnessing weapons and like you said, one cover up leads to one thing, leads to another. You were talking about children going missing. Yes, of course, for many reasons, which we don't even have to talk about right now. For many reasons, they're going to go missing. But is it really aliens, or again a military op cover up? Yeah. For another nefarious deed?
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. Okay. And that should be the serious question: is it a cover up of nefarious deeds?
Yeah.
By military.
Now, we're going over this because it's so important, and we're going to get there. We're going to get there. There's a reason for this. Why? It could be a theory just on, the rev up of the UFO sightings. They use it, I believe, for control mechanisms. They use it to hide what they're doing behind closed doors and the darkness of night. Of course, their excuse, it could be aliens, but we're not going to admit it. I get the whole game. It's fantastic. But they actually went publicly this week to do some hearings, Jesse. And
I listened to those in front of Congress. And
yeah. And I was a little bit shocked. So I'm going to play a clip. I want everybody to listen to it. It's a quick clip. This is a clip that I took that stood out for me. There was a lot that stood out for me in these hearings. But this clip, listen to it carefully. I'm going to play it. I want you to give me your thoughts. Turn up your volume. Here it is.
Was anything described as that we have possession of bodies?
Yes, yes.
We have is it multiple types of creatures or?
Sir, I couldn't answer that. I can tell you anecdotally that it was discussed quite a bit when I was at the Pentagon. The problem is the supposed collection of these biological samples occurred before my time, in fact, before I was even born.
And was this part of the Lockheed Martin discussion, or was this the biologics is a completely separate?
Separate yet related.
Okay. Has anyone made contact?
Sir, I'm sorry, could you specify?
Has there been any, to your knowledge, any communication with a non-human life form?
So the term communication is a bit of a trick word because there's verbal communication like we're having now. The problem is you also have nonverbal communication. And so I would say definitively yes, but from a nonverbal meaning, when a Russian reconnaissance aircraft comes into U.S. airspace, we scramble 2 F-22s, and we are certainly communicating intent and capability. I think the same goes with this. We have these things that are being observed over controlled U.S. airspace, and they're not really doing a good job hiding themselves. They're making it pretty obvious they have the ability to even interfere with our nuclear equities and our nuclear readiness.
Is the United States government and our contractors, are they pulling technology from this? Or they're reverse engineering this?
Key phrases in there.
Yeah.
I think for me, the important definition is that we want something tangible. We want evidence to just be physical, meaning it can be seen, heard, felt. But there, he just admitted that they have evidence of the existence or communication with these beings, but that communication is only in the spirit, which goes back to exactly what you said, that they're spiritual beings.
Correct. These spiritual beings that are able to connect to us, to harness themselves into us, to do what they want to do. And so, again, he said they have, but he hasn't seen it, or the evidence is older than him. So I find that interesting. And the only thing I've come across, which I find to be phenomenal evidence of an alien being, a creature, was leaked. And I have a copy of it. I'm going to share with everybody. I've shared this once before in the past with some of our audience. Some of you have not seen this before. I'll prepare you for it. It looks kind of creepy. And I'm going to share with everybody. And then we're going to dissect it. So here's a video of a so-called alien that was caught. It was brought to the military to be interrogated, interviewed, looked into, and I guess medically researched. So here it is.
Now, I have to pose the interesting question in this. If we're talking about spiritual things, like, we've done a couple shows where we talked about, spirits that are able to allow people to shape shift. Do you think it's the possibility do you think like that video you were just showing, is that a real alien, or is it a spirit that has allowed a human to change form, to take another form?
Gotcha. That's a great question, Jess. I'm still trying to figure out whether this is even real or not. Could it be modern day AI that's covered up to look like it was very old footage? That's possible. You can't trust anything, really.
Yeah, it's possible.
But I find that the skinny neck, the skinny fingers, it could be gloves. I find that interesting. However, I'm going to go with my instinct, which is it's in the spirit. It's spirit. It's terrestrial. And it can communicate spiritually in our dreams through its mind. We've heard this before. And we know about this through magic. We know about this through the occult. We know about this. This is one thing you studied, Jess, that I studied, that I was a part of.
You know, it's like in the occult, you don't always use verbal language.
No,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, we know about this because if the human spirit can leave the human body to go and hurt another human being while they're sleeping, to astral project, to have wars in the spirit. Mr. Burns talks to us about this all the time when he has wars in the spirit. We had John Ramirez, correct, where he went to battle in the spirit. I bring it up because if human beings, spirit, can leave their body, biblically it talks about God cutting the silver cord. So it's biblical. You can do it. It's possible. Your spirit can leave your body and do battle. If we can do it, why can't other species or other beings do it?
That's a good question.
So I believe that these aliens, the aliens. Again, I until I actually see a three-dimensional person that's an alien. I think it's more spiritual. And many, by the way, this is not just my theory. You know, you've talked about Aleister Crowley. He one of the biggest occultists in the world, guys. Aleister Crowley, and he talked about Lamb, and Lamb is someone that he saw and that he thought was it looked like an alien. This is Aleister Crowley. Look him up. We've done many shows about this guy, and it looked like an alien. Or is that what he perceived? They say that the devil will only allow you to see him in whatever image he allows you to see him. Some will see him ugly, some will see him nice, some will see him beautiful. Whatever image he decides you to see is how they see. Are these aliens able to do the same thing? We can only see what we perceive it to be, which is to us weird. We don't know. Weird.
Right, like there's a psychological manifestation, and people can perceive it differently. Even, you know, is it something that we just see with our eyes as almost like a delusion, a cover, or is it actually a being physically? You know, a being.
Yeah. And there's been many people that have talked about it, that have come forward, that have talked about, you know, their experiences. But then again, to me, it goes back to military ops, and them trying to harness weaponry, technology. And if you ask, okay, let's get into it. Where did they? So if the military has this technology or ideas, where did they get it from? Well, obviously, fallen beings, obviously demonic spirits, because one of the most unbelievable books, and by the way, we need to do a show on this book, because it talks about the fallen angels. It talks about him negotiating with the angels. It talks about how these fallen ones taught the daughters of man about makeup, where it came from, the art. It's called root work. That's where it comes from. Root work is medicine. How you're able to take plants and bring it at this. The fallen ones taught them this. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So the art of
sorcery, the divination, the witchcraft. But I
you
think
know,
even in that, there's
you know a book I'm talking about.
It but it brings it into that, where they pose a very interesting issue, which it brings it into the nuclear sphere, which is, quantumly, you're dealing with, quantum physics, mass amounts of light, energy, frequency that's used as weaponry. Yeah. And there was a line in that video where the guy says, these beings have the, potential to basically interfere with nuclear weaponry.
Yeah.
That's concerning. It's like, because you're bringing it all into the spirit world.
Sorry, Samantha says, this is pretty good. Are you going to name that book or not? I apologize. I thought you guys knew what I was referring to. I'm referring to the Book of Enoch. That's what I'm referring to, Enoch, which is a great book because he was one of the only people that left the earth alive. Interesting enough, on some type of firing chariot that carried him away.
Elijah. That was Elijah. Enoch was the other one. Enoch walked with God and was no more. Yeah.
Yes, correct. So only a few left the earth. And so Enoch, being one of them, wrote this, and his background was, I forget where his background was. Oh man, I'm forgetting his background. Not Somalian. Where they say they were keeping the Art of the Grail. Jess, where are they keeping the Art of the Grail? Do you remember?
Not offhand on that, no.
Okay, so where that's Enoch is from those parts. So Ethiopia, thank you, Ethiopia.
Yeah,
so,
I was going to suggest that, but yeah.
Ethiopia. So he was very knowledgeable, brought a lot of information, but discussed how this information was passed on to men and women. So we bring that up. If Enoch talked about how the fallen ones taught human beings about the art of war, taught them about makeup, taught them about root work, which is medicine, then why can't these other nefarious beings, these entities, teach about technology like AI?
Yeah. Or is that a part, is that a part of it? Is it a continuance of the same thing, the same beings teaching that hidden knowledge or knowledge that comes out of, heavenly kingdoms that they're aware of, you know?
Well, again, it's an interesting conversation. There's one guy who's kind of a specialist about this topic, Dr. Stephen Greer. I forget the pronunciation. Now, Dr. Stephen Greer said that his group did a lot of research on this, and he's got a lot of information. He's great to listen to if you ever get a chance. And I want to play a clip. Of what he had to say. Very interesting stuff. So take a listen, because we're going to talk about this. Here it is.
Werner von Braun, in his deathbed in 1974, told a member of my team, Carol Rosen, that their plan is to create, eventually, an hoax, a threat from outer space, to try to unite the world, like Independence Day, the movie, in a sort of a military global junta of humans against aliens. It's all nonsense. It's BS. But it sells well. It sells movies, it sells tickets, it sells books.
This is the Blue Beam, Project Blue Beam?
Yeah, that related to that. And I've met with many men who've been on operationally, like literally have been operational on those programs.
Werner von Braun talked about how this was a plan that they would implement a type of UFO attack upon us. We would be in fear, and we would probably give up our sovereignty, our freedoms to have protection. Tell me, where have I heard that before? Now, on that note, they'll also use it as part of a way to ring in their new Messiah and bring in one world religion. That's a possibility, of course. So miracles will be done, and they're going to shock the world. This is associated with Project Blue Beam. Project Blue Beam is more about the coming of Christ in three-dimensional ways, not the actual Lord and Savior, but is to implement this new world government, new world religion,
universal government, global government, not just all these nations. It's to bring everybody together,
and religion, and they're going to use this
and economy.
Everybody. Yeah, that would be a no for me. I don't give authority or permission or authorization because I just don't buy it. But what can this Project Blue Beam look like? Well, here's a quick clip just to have an idea. I found a couple of clips of a couple of things. And remember, the clips I'm going to show you are what's available to us as technology. I'm going to show you clips of a form of hologram, 7D hologram, not 3, 7D hologram available to us. So if we have the access to create this, imagine what the military has. So here it is. Take a look. Holograms accessible to us. Incredible. So real, it shocks you. That's the technology that me and you could get, through corporations. But imagine what they have even better than that in the military. Give me your thoughts on what you just saw with this blue beam technology.
Yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal. And when you see that and it looks so lifelike, and that's just, 7D, then what does, you've got to ask, like, we know they've got more. Can they make things look like, it's there in the sky? Could they make it look, I mean, even I've seen a few that you didn't show there, but I've seen ones where at stadiums, literally it looked like this massive, lion that was leaping from one part of the stadium to another. And, can they play with our minds that way? Create operations where we would believe that all of a sudden there's these UFOs, aliens are coming in, and could they make us believe and so afraid that we would give up our sovereignty,
Man, it's hard to believe here, Jess, but anyways, there is a lot of talk and speculation currently in the world, in politics, about UFO sightings. I'm just letting everybody have an open mind with this discussion and the information. Is it a possibility this is part of an agenda to implement Project Bluebeam? They said, yes, there's aliens, there's some sightings. All of a sudden, we're under attack, and they implement their own agenda, take away our sovereignty, take away our rights, so they could do what they'd like to do. Is that even a possibility, or just a conspiracy theory?
I believe it's a possibility, strongly. I think that is exactly what they're doing, and it's beyond just being a conspiracy theory. I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah. We will never know for absolute sure. The masses, I'm sure there's some that do know what the truth really, truly is. But all we could say is when you're in prayer, ladies and gentlemen, God gives you something wonderful. I'm going to tell you what that is. It's called discernment. Your gut, something inside you says, that's not right. Like how many of you a few years ago said, nah, I don't want to do that, or I don't want to wear this, I don't want to stand 6 feet apart, I don't want to. A lot of you, many of you didn't know why. You thought something just doesn't feel right, because you were given discernment by a higher power through, I believe, our Lord and Savior. And from this discernment, you were able to systematically judge yay or nay. I don't want to be a part of it. I do want to be a part of it. And I think with that, you'll be able to make a decision. If you follow your gut on what's real and what's not real. So the moral here, Jess, is to be in prayer and to ask the Lord to guide you through these muddy waters, to give you that discernment that you need to help make the proper judgment calls you need to. So give glory, grace, and praise to God Almighty. He will guide you through this. No matter what the truth is, we can always depend on the Lord Almighty. Jesse, in closing, what are your thoughts about UFO sightings. Are there more coming? Do you think we're going to have an alien invasion?
I think it's a high plausibility. You know, I think that that's been part of the system's end time plans of, you know, scenarios they can run to get that full control that they want. And I agree with you 100% that the solution, you know, is to trust the Lord and to be in prayer. And in that, you know, his word says in Joshua 1:9, you know, the Lord says, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not tremble or be afraid, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So in every situation, we know that God is with us. We know that he is the all-powerful one, that he's the creator of all things. All things are subject under his feet. So let that be, you know, what you put your trust in. And, you know, in those moments, it's difficult, you know, especially when what you're seeing with your eyes, what you're hearing with your ears, or what you're feeling seems so real. But in that moment, ask the Lord for discernment. Say, Lord, let me really see, let me know what my enemy is, and give me the strength to overcome. You know, deliver the enemy into my hands and trust that the Lord's going to do that. You know, however that may look. So I encourage you guys to, you know, we've done a few other episodes about, you know, beings, paranormal things, some of the locations where there's been kind of strange activities. I encourage people to go back and watch those. And I think altogether it paints a picture of what we're dealing with.
Let me read a couple of quick comments before we sign off because I like them. Golden says, if everyone is doing it, stay on the narrow path. I love it. Anthony says, top quality BS dictators or
detectors. We
detectors.
need that.
Yeah,
Top quality BS detectors. Yep.
Blue says, we are being deceived. Oh, yes. I truly believe that when they're doing something here, they're going to try something there. So I'm agreeing with that. And I believe Becky said it right. The way, truth, and light is Jesus. Thank you for that one. Jess, we're signing off. We're going to do a Q&A right after this on Patreon. People get to join us, be part of a discussion. And we're going to hear from, I think, Jonathan, or he's going to talk about his experience. He worked in the military. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. Anything you'd like to share before we say goodnight?
I encourage people to follow me on my website, kingdomlivingwithjessie.com. I'm going to have a whole bunch of new courses and series coming out where I speak about the structure of the system and kind of just outline everything. So if you are curious about comments I made tonight, I encourage you to watch that series, Unveiling of the System, to get a further understanding of what we are dealing with. Yep. So it's kingdomlivingwithjessie.com.
Excellent. Guys, I want to thank you all for joining us on the show for this Monday edition. And don't forget, we're going to do Patreon, a Q&A roundtable. Coming up next, you can be a part of it. Link is in the description. I thank you all for joining us. On behalf of Jesse and myself, thanks for watching. God bless and good night.